This is a Mark 1 Seat Leon FR 1.9 TDI. That's the 150 PD ARL engine code, and these are the same engines that are in the VWs, Skodas and Audis. This particular car is giving us a turbo overboost fault code, and it's recently been going into limp mode. That's when the power gets shut off, the turbo gets shut off, and you have to reset the engine to bring everything back. So what we're going to do is save hundreds of pounds by getting under the car, unbolting the exhaust from the turbo and filling it with Mr. Muscle oven cleaner, which contains sodium hydroxide. That should eat away at some of the carbon in there and free up the variable vane mechanism. And before I go any further, I want to say you have to have your own safety in mind. Make sure the car is safely secured. Ramps are better than jacks, and if you're using jacks, make sure you have axle stands. Sodium hydroxide in the Mr. Muscle is very, very nasty stuff. You want your whole body to be covered, gloves, goggles, masks, and make sure you don't get any of that in your skin or in your eyes. Okay, so we're under the car now, and here we have the turbo. That's the exhaust side of it, and here is the turbo's actuator. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the exhaust from the turbo, so that's this component here. We're going to remove these nuts. They're 13mm sockets that you need with a ratchet. The most difficult one is on the other side from what we can see here. It's really tricky to get at, but I'll show you how to get at that in a minute. First, I just want you to remember that after you've driven the car, you need to leave it sitting for about 2 hours before you can carry on with this procedure, because the turbo will get very hot and the Mr. Muscle is really flammable. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how to get off the most difficult nut, which is probably the one you should try first, I reckon. And it's on the other side of the exhaust. The way to get to it, if you get under this gap here, you should just be able to see it. I don't know if you guys can see it from there. There it is. And I'm just going to put my ratchet onto it, just so you can see. So passing your hand through here, you'll be able to just about get your ratchet on that nut. There it is, right up there. And it probably makes sense to put some WD-40 on these before you start. So that's the nut, you can see my ratchet on it, and that's the way that you get to that most difficult one. You can see that bolt there, I've got it about halfway off, and now I should be able to just pull it off with my fingers. From the other side, of course. Yeah, there you can see it there. Be careful, it's going to be tricky, you have to try to catch it. I've got it between my fingers. That's the most tricky bolt. It's worth trying to get off first. Now, once you've removed that most difficult bolt at the back, these others shouldn't be too difficult at all. Okay, so I've actually got off the 3 nuts from the exhaust that connects it to the turbo. Next thing I'm going to show you before I remove the exhaust from the turbo is this actuator here. Now this is vacuum actuated, and that's what actuates the variable vanes inside the turbo, which are the things that we're trying to unstick. Now behind it there's a rod, and I'm just going to show you that from back here. Okay, there's the exhaust. Where is the actuator? Can you see it there? Okay, so there's the actuator. There's the actuator rod. And I've just sprayed it full of WD-40. And what I'm going to do is all the way through, we're just going to be pulling that rod down. It's about there. And when you start off, it'll be a little bit sticky, and you'll hear it smoothen up and ease up. It only moves about 1 centimetre, you just want to keep moving that down. Once we put the Mr. Muscle in the turbo, we're going to be doing this every 10 to 15 minutes or so for a bit, and this should help get the vanes unstuck in there when it's full of Mr. Muscle. Okay, so
going to unhook the exhaust from the turbo. And when I do that, there's a gasket between the two, and we want to catch that. Now, it should just pull off. There we go. The exhaust has been removed from the turbo, and I can see the gasket. There it is. This gasket's metal. This is in perfectly fine condition. I'm going to reuse that, and it only goes one way up, which you can see, so it should be easy to put back on for you guys as well. Okay, what I've done is just pulled the exhaust away from the turbo. That's very easy to do. It's got this little flexi thing there, which allows you to do that. Now, if you stick your hands inside the turbo, in that hole there, feel the turbine wheel very, very gently and check it for play. Luckily, mine has no play whatsoever, which means that the turbo overboost problem is most likely just sticky vanes, and we're going to go ahead with the Mr. Muscle clean, and that should help us out quite a bit. Okay, what I'm going to do is take a WD-40 can which has the smart straw on it, and you can actually take this off very easily. Now, obviously, anytime you're using Mr. Muscle oven cleaner, you've got to be very careful. Carefully remove the top lid, and carefully put on the lid from the smart straw from the WD-40 onto the Mr. Muscle bottle. And if you just gently twist it, push it, and there, that's now in place. Remember to shake this well before you use it, and be very, very careful with this stuff. If it gets in your eyes, you're going to have a problem. If it gets on your skin, you're going to have a problem. So be covered up, use gloves, use goggles, use a mask, and be very careful when you're under there with this stuff. Okay, I'm back under the turbo. What I've done is I've covered this with some rags, and I'm about to put the Mr. Muscle inside the turbo. Now, this is going to be a bit messy. Okay, we're going to get the Mr. Muscle inside that hole using the modified can, and we want to get it as far into the turbo as we can. Do some long pushes. It is going to start foaming up around here. I've got lots of rags around me, and what I'm going to do is keep wiping it up. If it touches any aluminium, you want to wipe it off there as soon as you can, because that stuff will eat through aluminium. And obviously it's going to get a bit messy because I'm right under the car. So I'm wearing safety goggles, I've got a mask on, I've got lots of gloves and lots of rags around me, and I'm going to do this very carefully. Okay, you can see there I've been spraying that stuff in, it's starting to foam around. I'm just going to wipe that all off and give it a couple of sprays like this, maybe 2 or 3. And then we'll start playing with that actuator rod every 15 minutes for a couple of hours, and that should really help us out. Okay. Now I've been playing with that actuator. You can see the Mr. Muscle still in the turbo. I've wiped it all about, and what I'm going to do now is rebuild it, and I'm just going to show you how to do that. Now, we had this gasket that we took off. It only goes one way. The elongated single hole is on the bottom, the 2 holes are at the top, and you just want to put this over the where the bolts go. It might be tricky for me to film this while I do it, but the principle is pretty simple. And there you go, I've got the gasket back on there. Next step will be to get the exhaust back over that the bolts there. So there's 3 holes in the exhaust. We just want to move it back onto the turbo. This might be tricky for me to film, but I'll try for you guys. I think I might need both hands for this, but you'll be able to work it out. It's not that hard. So we just want to put that exhaust there back over the turbo. Yeah, I'll need 2 hands, so I'll catch up with you guys in a sec. Okay, I've got the exhaust back onto the turbo. Now we're just going to put those bolts back on. Do you remember the most difficult bolt on the other side? I'm going to advise that you put that one on first. And again, there's this little gap over here, and from that side you should just be able to see what you're doing. If you reach your hand around the other side, get the bolt on. It might be difficult for me to do this while I film, so apologies for that. There's my finger on the yellow glove, as you can just see. Here it is. That's where we want to get that first bolt, the most difficult one. Got that first most difficult bolt. I'm going for the bottom one now. And nice and tight. And then the last one should be quite easy, that one up there. So the order I did them in is the most difficult first, and the bottom, then the final top one that's easiest to get to. And the way I did these was by firstly putting on the bolt by hand, the nut by hand, excuse me. Getting it far down as I can, you can see there. Then I've got my ratchet with the 13mm socket. Make sure you've cleaned up all of the excess Mr. Muscle, you don't want that stuff getting on you. Okay, that's real nice and tight. So that's a rebuild done. I'm still going to leave that stuff on there for a while. Still going to leave the car on the ramp. And still going to keep playing with the actuator until we've done like a good 2 hours. Okay, I've been under the car for a good couple of hours now. And I've been playing around with that actuator rod, moving it up and down as much as I can, after rebuilding the turbo following the Mr. Muscle spray, and I'm pretty satisfied that that's going to be good enough. Just going to basically take the car off the ramp now and fire it up. We're going to drive around quite hard, get it as close to the red line as we can, in order to chuck all that stuff out of the exhaust. You don't want to leave it in here overnight or anything like that. You want to chuck it out after a couple of hours or so. So that's what we're going to do, and I hope this helps. This could save you a lot of money, and if you enjoy this video, if it helped you out, please comment, rate, subscribe. This was Redline Revs. Make sure you check out my other videos. I've done a review of this Powerflex engine mount bush, which has also done a lot of good for the car, and check that out too, as well as my others. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I've taken the car for a spin, got it as close to the red line as possible on the motorway, and got everything nice and hot to chuck it all out of the exhaust. The turbo sounds better than it has for a long time. The car has a lot of power restored. It's much quicker than it's been for a while, and everything seems perfectly fine. So if you have a VNT or VGT, that's variable nozzle turbo or variable geometry turbo, then if you're having a sticky vanes problem or turbo overboost and you've been told to buy a new turbo, stop, try this first. I've gone in through the exhaust here. That's something you can do on all models. The reason I've done it that way is because this is a 150 PD ARL engine code, which has a really fat EGR cooler pipe, and I didn't want to take all of that apart. So I've gone from underneath, and you can do that on any car with a VNT turbo, but just make sure you're safe when you're under the car and you're covered when you're using the sodium hydroxide Mr. Muscle. I hope this helps. Comment, rate, subscribe.